It's that time of the weekend where we can practice our headlight spotting skills. Welcome to night practice, everybody, for the 70th running of the 24 Hours of Spa. It is, of course, a round of the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup. It's a round also of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. And under the regulations, everybody has to do at least 3 laps in this night practice session. So it's not about times, it's not going to affect the grid. It gives us an idea of perhaps what will happen in the night section of the races, perhaps which cars are going to be competitive. But it's most important of all that the drivers, many of them who will be new to this discipline of night racing, they've done Paul Ricard, yes, but a 24-hour race for some, it will be their first 24-hour race. It's all important that they get a flavour and a feel for what it's like on a wonderful track, but in dark conditions where you've got not only the lack of natural light to factor in, you've got the headlights of the cars around you, and it could well be that you've got rubber on the circuit, oil on the circuit, you've got traffic to contend with, all of these different facets that make up a long distance GT race. We've also got, of course, a few cars with dramas like Bentley number 7, which we know had a technical issue, but we don't know more than that for the time being. In qualifying, it missed out on going out in Q4, so they'll be treating this as a glorified test session to try and get around that problem and get some mileage in. John Watson and David Addison, trackside. It is night practice, it is go, it is 90 minutes. It's an opportunity, as I say, to recognise headlights. It's a chance for the drivers to get used to the circuit. And thus far, interestingly, John, there's one taker, and it's Martin Kodrich's Lamborghini.
Well, somebody had to go out first, and it's Martin Kodrich. So you can see how dark it gets. One of the differences between Spa 24 and other 24-hour events, both on Europe or on the European continent and in North America, the Daytona 24 Hours, is how dark it is. Dropping out of Speaker's Corner down to Pujon. There is nothing around to illustrate where we are on the racetrack other than watching the car. So down into Pujon, a little bit of light as they come out of Pujon, then all the way down to Fagnes. And this is one of the difficulties that everybody faces when you're in a group of cars. You've got the power of the modern headlight, these LED headlights in your mirrors, and there's nothing really to tell you the car that's catching. Is that a car, a pro-driven car, or is it just a Pro-Am car? Always an issue. So as you see, one car on the racetrack, not a lot of ambient light other than from the headlights of this car. Makes her way up the hill, comes through the lead-in to Blanchimont, and one would assume that's a little lift. Is he lifting? He never ever looked like he was going to lift. Exits Blanchimont, and then the final run up to the bus stop chicane. We saw a lot of messiness through all 4 qualifying sessions on the entry into the bus stop chicane. Cars that had just gone out, preparing to go onto a flying lap. Cars that were on a flying lap, all congealing together in the bus stop chicane, and it caused concern, confusion, probably a little bit of anger as well.
It's interesting that there are so few cars venturing out early in this session. I know it's not about doing a time, and for some it'll be a box ticking exercise, 3 laps done, because the pro teams, the overall classification teams, they'll be drivers used to 24-hour races, whether they're here or elsewhere. So for them, it's just a case of fulfilling the regulations. But for other teams, they want to get the drivers through and give them as much mileage as possible.
Well, in particular for those in the AM category who are not necessarily familiar with racing at night time, and particularly racing here at Spa. As we see, there's a bit more light as they come up the Camel straight up into Les Combes, but really it was from the exit of Bruxelles down through Speaker's Corner, all the way down the hill into the valley, and then the double left at Pujon, where the car has to come in early, make an early apex, let the car run all the way out to the outside of the curb, but not run the curb, and then bring it back for the exit. So there we are into Bruxelles. There is a little bit of additional light around bits of the racetrack. Nevertheless, only one car we've seen so far venturing out. Undoubtedly the pro cars, they'll just have to go through the motions of making sure all 3 of their drivers qualify, where in the Pro-Am or in the Am categories, the Silver Cup, there will be drivers, well, there'll be 4 drivers per car, so they will need track time, and it is a matter of giving them the time without the pressure of going out and doing a qualifying lap or trying to contribute to a qualifying lap. Just get familiar, just find your landmarks, the reference points that you so much need to be able to assess where am I going to brake. And because you haven't got the reference points that you would normally have, you've got to get new reference points. So that's all a part, particularly for those gentlemen drivers who are not so familiar, who might be a little bit nervous and tentative going out on the internet. And also then, of course, when you do it nighttime for the race for rail, it becomes an entirely different scenario whatsoever. So up the hill again, purple sectors first and second, which is understandable. Godrich in the 78 Barwell Lamborghini. So let's see what his first flying lap time represents. 2:22.8. First flying lap, you have to say, a pretty reasonable effort. Go back to the number 4, Lucas Stoltz, Elmer Berman et al. This is one of the quicker Mercedes.
It's interesting that that car is out on track, because that again is an overall class car.
Maro Engel behind the wheel.
Yeah, but the point being, they don't lack experience of 24-hour races.
No, again, primarily they'll be just cycling their drivers, but they will want to push to see what lap times they may be able to achieve in these conditions. It may not be like this on Saturday evening. There's rain forecast for around the start of the race, which will turn everything upside down. But let's hope by the time they get into the twilight hours, and that sort of comes here around about 9:30, 9:45, that the track will be a dry track. It is not pleasant to drive around in the darkness on a road track at this kind of speed. So fastest first sector, not unreasonably, goes to Maro Engel in the Mercedes, number 4, up the hill. And I think there's no hesitation or doubt in my mind that Maro Engel will be absolutely flat from the exit of Paul Frere curve all the way up through the curves that lead into Blanchimont Rail. And just really, it's only on the exit of Blanchimont you have to be careful, because the curbing there, if you abuse it, you will get penalised.
I'm not being flippant when I say this, but bearing in mind this is a box ticking exercise, get 3 drivers, 3 laps, you can go to bed early, can't you? Get the work done early on in the session.
Thank you very much. We've got to stay here till the bitter end.
Well, if you get your 3 laps done, that was the first of them.
Yeah.
We'll relieve you soon, John, it's fine.
Excellent.
Yeah. So,
anyway, 2:22. In fact, it just illustrates that the lap time of Martin Codrich was a very good lap time. It was, just half a second away from that of Maro Engel. In what we did assume. Yeah, but in what is a more professional car, looking into the row racing BMWs. It was the BMW, the Balkenhurst Motorsport BMW, that was quickest overall over the 4 qualifying sessions. And one might say it was probably a surprise, because one would have associated that kind of performance from the row racing team. But it was Valkenhurst who did a great job with 2 outstanding drivers and a very, very talented third driver in that car.
Yeah, Christian Cronjes, the point was being made to everybody in the press conference. He's not a pro driver, he has a day job, but he goes very quickly when he gets behind the wheel of a car. Now this is the Honda, Esteban Guerrieri. We haven't talked about a great deal in qualifying, but he's been doing his laps in session. And Guerrieri for Castrol Honda Racing, now making his way down towards the bus stop.
Great to have Honda here at Spa-Francorchamps. Car, I think, looks outstanding, and with the technology that Honda are putting into the new generation of NSX. Of course, the road car is a hybrid, but this is a fully internal combustion engine. Ricardo Patrese. Ricardo, it's not quite bedtime yet. You got to go out and do your nighttime stint. And Ricardo, of course, making a return to football, a one-off professional race here in Spa-Francorchamps. Had a little bit of a spin down at the bottom of the circuit in his session. So the skill undoubtedly is still there, but it just takes time to shake off all that rust to get back to the kind of level and performance and commitment that you would have done in your fully professional days behind the wheel, principally for Ricardo as a Grand Prix driver, but he did race in Group C in period for Lancia particularly, and I think I remember competing against him at some point or another. I think Porsche raced with a 956 and Lancia had the little Lancia Betas, a 1.4 turbocharged engine. They had a big weight brake, so on certain circuits the Lancia was very nimble and competitive, but on circuits like Le Mans, where Porsche would run the long-tail versions of the 956, then they would have had the upper hand. But Ricardo coming back, another ex-Grand Prix driver who has left that forum now, Rubens Barrichello, racing in Brazil in Brazilian super stock cars. He, in one of the Mercedes, of course Ricardo has raced, I'm not Ricardo, Rubens is racing continually in Brazil, so is race ready, where Ricardo has come out of retirement for this event, and of course hopefully he will have had a certain amount of time behind the wheel before he would have come to Spa-Francorchamps. But nothing beats track time, nothing beats being behind the wheel of a racing car and actually racing, as opposed to doing what Ricardo may have done, which is a few hours behind the wheel at a test track without the pressure of other cars on the circuit. But there we're back on board with the Honda, climbing up through the sequence of corners into Blancpain. Just a little bit hesitant on the throttle going through the high-speed corner, quickest corner on the racetrack, and then back up the hill, onto the brakes, down 3 gears, swing in, keep the car as tight to the right as you can, then back to the left, straighten it all up, so as you get the maximum traction, and then accelerate across the start-finish line. V6 engine sounds pretty glorious. Ricardo's face, and I wonder what's going through his mind. When he's driving, interestingly, he's wearing spectacles. As we look inside the M Sport Bentley pits, there's a lot of work going on now. The engine is in there somewhere. One of the things that Bentley have done, M Sport team have done, is they've managed to get the engine, which is not inconsiderable, a V8 Bentley engine, tucked down and away. When you look into the bonnet, you think, where you can't see it. It's so low. That's a part of the contribution to the Bentley and the ability for the car to take a very large GT car and make it one of the most nimble, most light on its feet of any of the cars in the field.
That last lap from Guerrieri was pretty clear, wasn't it, traffic-wise? He'd be lucky to get another lap like that in, or many more like that over the course of the weekend. And gradually, the circuit is now getting busier. We've got 60-plus cars. There's another wave venturing out as down at the foot of Eau Rouge. This is where Spa, this is where GT cars start to look ever more spectacular, isn't it?
I mean, if you could see them, yes. I mean, this is a problem. Setting the corner up at the entry to the Coombe, well, you see nothing, and then just only when you pan across that you get a chance to see. Well, there's the Aston Martin, a little bit further behind, you got one of the Lamborghinis, and it is 99 Row Racing BMW, and you can see just the cluster of cars all now tripping over one another, coming down into Bruxelles. And not only have we got the problem of identifying them from ahead on, as they gather together in one big clump, they don't know whether it's a fast car, a Pro-Am car, whatever kind of car it is. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars almost in a train. The last thing you want is those LED lights. And look at the dust. Now, who's been kicking up the dust on the entry into the first part of Buchholm? So Grunjes, certainly quickest overall in the BMW, 39.8 that first sector.
John, you and I get used to seeing GT cars at speed, and we get used to seeing nighttime racing. We had 6 hours at Paul Ricard going from the afternoon sunshine into the darkness, but for the 24 hours this weekend we have lots of different voices because, well, most of you will go all the way through the race. Some of us have to slope off back to the UK, but we're delighted to welcome American broadcaster Bob Varsha to the team for the weekend. Bob, welcome to Spa in the 24 hours and welcome to GT racing.
Thank you very much. This is really a bucket list item for me, and I'm so glad to be here. I mean, let me count the ways. My favorite racetrack in the world, a spectacular lineup of cars, a driver lineup to match up with any other race in the world, the best GT racing, and oh yeah, that wild weather forecast you guys have been referring to from time to time. I mean, what more could you ask this weekend?
Well, it's also got the best beer in the world as well, Belgium, so
I'm told. I have to do some research on that front.
Perfect, I'll come with you. There's a marvellous place that's just opened down the road in Malmedy that has 73 different types of beer. I haven't got through all of them yet, but
it could be another 24-hour challenge.
Oh, at least. It's a fabulous entry, this, and you look down through the list of drivers and their background, and you start to appreciate all the star drivers that you have, and their various disciplines. You know, you've got ex-Grand Prix drivers, you've got people with Formula E background, you've got people with touring car background, and then throw into the mix as well the AMs, and many of those in their own right are very quick drivers, and because of all the different classes we've got, there's so much going on.
Well, that's part of the challenge and the charm of endurance sports car racing, is that you can get that cross-section of great professional drivers, but also the talented and resourceful enthusiast who wants to go out there and mix it up with the best in the world just to see what he or she could do.
Spa in Europe has this reputation of, you've got to go to Spa, brilliant circuit, all the drivers love it, and increasingly, like all circuits, it has to pay its way, so there are more and more club level, national level events, and lots of championships from the UK come here, or from mainland Europe, because Spa is this great draw. Is it the same in America? Do Americans, this isn't a rude question, I hope, but do they understand the lure of Spa?
I think they do,
yeah.
Yes. Certainly those that follow Formula One or World Endurance or some of the series that come here, they love this place too. I mean, I always say the thing about road racing, a good road racing circuit is one that makes you feel like you're actually going somewhere in the classic tradition of racing on proper everyday roads. Now, obviously, we can't do that in this day and age, but you can have tracks like Spa who make you feel like you're actually traveling from A to B, just at a lot faster pace.
But Bob, your background is in racing and broadcasting in North America, and I certainly at one point in my career raced in a race series which was for Group C cars called IMSA. And I think Spa is obviously the classic road circuit now, one of the very few road circuits, although it's become a permanent circuit in Europe. But I remember going to Road America and other racetracks, Watkins Glen. To me, absolutely, I love Watkins Glen to bits.
And Watkins Glen is another of those classic circuits. Suzuka comes to mind. Road America is certainly one of those. Road Atlanta, my home track in the southeastern United States. I mean, there are a handful of them around the world that capture what the true racing enthusiast wants to see when he sees drivers and cars like these out on the road.
Now, you've got the Pirelli World Challenge, which is now being more and more integrated into the SRO, the SRO Motorsports family. And John and I have been saying this evening and in other Blancpain rounds what a mega entry, not just of drivers, but of cars it is. Which is on your bucket list? The event's been on your bucket list, so which car do you want to go home with? A McLaren or a Bentley or a Porsche or a Ferrari or all of the above? Come on. Where's your heart going?
Think about that for a moment. Yeah, I'll go with the McLaren. Now, the 650S is going away next year. We're going to get the next model up, right? We're going to get the 720, I believe it is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the one I want when it gets here.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, look, there we are.
Yep.
That's the 650S. So that's the AM, or Pro-Am car, with my namesake, Andrew Watson, young driver from Northern Ireland who's come through, in fact, I think it was through Ginetta Juniors.
That's right, yeah.
Way back about 3 or 4 years ago, and got kind of cherry-picked by Garage 59, the operation that runs these McLarens. So that's a car with Andrew Watson behind the wheel in the Pro-Am category that could be the winner of that category.
He's had 2 wins in class already this season, so it's certainly a very competitive car. And one of the drivers of said McLaren is Alexander West, who is, for the moment, out of the car. He's with Dakota.
Alex, now you had a lot of experience here last year. Is it nice to be back here at Spa 24 Hours?
It is awesome to be back here. It is, to me, really, this is the coolest race in the world in GT class. It's just, and now with night practice, it's, I'm looking forward to getting out and driving in the evening. I'm still amazed at how close you can get to daytime running, even in the middle of the night.
And what is your lap times like in the evening compared to the day?
Half a second slower, so it's not that much. So.
And who's the fastest in the car?
Am I as fast as what?
Who's the fastest in the car?
Watson. But Goodwin is getting pretty quick. He's getting a lot of experience over the last year.
And you're enjoying driving here with McLaren?
Yeah, no, look, it's been awesome. I think Garage 59 is doing a great job. We're having a lot of fun. So it's there's so much downtime between the races. So unless you're with a team where you're having fun in between, it's going to be really, really boring, as you can see.
We're going to have a lot of fun watching you. Thank you. Good luck.
Alexander West is an example, John, of somebody that has really improved in a very short space of time within the AM class. He's helped by having a good co-driver in Chris Goodwin. He came into Blancpain last year, hadn't done that much racing in the past, and has got better and better, and the steps forward he has taken have been giant ones.
Very difficult thing to do, but he has focused very much, and he's been disciplined, and he's listened. Very important to listen. And you've got people around you. Chris Goodwin, of course, synonymous with the development of the McLaren family of cars, no longer now with the McLaren team. He's moved on to new pastures, but nonetheless he's still in a McLaren, still involved in racing the product, and can give a great deal of assistance. And it's important that for Alexander West, who's a very intelligent man, he's not just a racing driver, he's a very successful businessman, so he's applying that in effect, his business principles to his motor racing, and he's listening and learning.
Riding on board with Alexander Sims, previous winner of the event. He's an ambassador for the British Racing Drivers Club's Superstars programme, designed to nurture and bring on young talent. And Alexander himself, of course, is no mean driver. Was in the walls a little bit at Le Mans with an incident in the M8, but here in the M6, a car with which, as I say, he's won the event in the past. Hustles on through the darkness. Bob, an example there of how uncompromising you've got to be. You know, you've got that bit of real estate, you're going to go for it, and the traffic has to make its own arrangements.
And you have to do it in the dark. And my question for you, John, would be when you're driving in the dark, do the headlights help you focus better? You don't have all the scenery flashing by, you're not watching sunsets, you're not seeing spectators on the hill and so forth. Is it easier to drive at night?
Well, Bob, I did a number of 24-hour races, and I only finished 2 of them. Mostly, those 24-hour races were 22 hours too long, so I never got to night time. So I was able to pack up, go back home, and there was only once at Le Mans when I finished, and there was only once at Daytona Beach when I finished. The difference is when you do finish those races, and Le Mans is, I think, the easiest of these 3 24-hour races we're discussing. I never competed in Spa 24, and I would imagine it's a very demanding race because of the amount of darkness, and you know, there'll be places on the racetrack you'll be driving around on your own. There might be another 50 cars or so on racetrack, but you just find that little pocket. It might last for 4 or 5 laps, and all of a sudden you'll be back in the mix with other cars. Daytona, again, it gets very dark, and there's a longer period of darkness there than there is here at Spa or Le Mans. But the difference is there's a lot more light around the banking, and that tends to then filter into the infield, so you don't have that sense of the blackness that you get here at Spa, or for that matter, probably you get at the Nürburgring 24 as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think it's a step back at Daytona. This is just my personal opinion, but they do run lights there, and the lights have been getting brighter over the years. I'd really like to see them turned down a little bit, and let's do some more night racing in the darkness.
Well, I don't think you can get the NASCAR drivers to compete in that pace, could you?
We are getting, though, the first warnings about track limits, which is going to be a constant problem, and especially, of course, in the dark, you perhaps try and get a little bit more real estate gobbled up. Maxi Books, Mercedes, you're looking at 43. However, let's hear from the man himself in the pit lane.
Maxi, you've driven this track a lot. You know it very well. What would you say the challenges are of driving here at Spa in the nighttime?
For sure the traffic, because some of the cars cannot really see where they're going sometimes, and for a lot of drivers it might be tough to get their eyes set for the night. But then, yeah, sure, when it's really, because in Spa it gets really dark, not like Nürburgring, and yeah, to find the apex and so on, braking point, it's tough to really get used to it the first couple of laps. And yeah, then it's all related to the traffic, I think.
Now, Maxi, we know you're a very quick driver, but what's going on? We haven't really seen much of you this year.
You see me now? No, Monza was good. P2 in Monza, then we struggled a bit in Silverstone and Lake Castellet as well here. Here was the situation that we missed it a bit in Q2 or Q3 when Alvaro was driving with the traffic and the red flag. It was doing not the lap time we were expected because of all the traffic. He had to like park the car in Blanchimont, and I think if he would have done a normal lap time, we would have been in the top 20 shootout. So.
Now for the qualifying, you must have had a theoretical time. Did you achieve your theoretical time, or were you a bit slower?
I was a bit slower, to be honest. Maxi Götz achieved his theoretical time. I was, I think, a tenth off. And yeah, but theoretical doesn't give you some extra positions.
Good luck with the race. Thank you.
So good to hear from Maxi Book. Just to tidy up 1 or 2 elements, we were talking about night practice and the importance for the teams and the drivers. I'm indebted to Greg Higgins, who has tweeted to remind me, don't forget the importance of nighttime practice for the fans of the track. There's nothing like getting lost at campus at 1 a.m, having stopped at most of the beer tents around the track to emphasise the importance of a so-called dry run. Can you really get that drunk on Jupiler? It's not that strong. But anyway, I like your style, Greg. Thank you very much. This session has got 65 minutes still to run. It's not about time, but if you want to know what the best lap is, the gun effort has been done by Tristan Vautier, 2:20.893, which is only about 1.8 seconds off what we were seeing as the best of qualifying.
But remember, they'll be doing sets of tyres that have been run before.
Sure.
They're not going to optimise a nighttime run because it hasn't any relevance in terms of what the top 20 will be doing, for example, tomorrow evening when they go for the shootout. and everybody else will be consolidating tyres as best as possible. So for most teams and drivers, it is about cycling through. For the pro teams, I don't know how many more miles or laps they will want to do. For the Pro-Am or Am teams, they might want to do a little bit more just to give those drivers the opportunity to build that confidence. And things that Max was saying, you know, you don't take too many prisoners when you're running at the sharp end of a 24-hour race. These are not endurance races. This is a 24-hour sprint race. It is absolutely mercurial from the minute the lights go out until the flag falls at 4:30 on Sunday afternoon. And it is when you're coming up and overtaking some of the AMs or the Pro-Am cars, it is incumbent upon the pro driver to avoid contact at all costs, because if there is contact, you will immediately be the perpetrator. Even if you're innocent, you'll still be guilty until you've been proven otherwise.
And increasingly, and it's the same here as it is at the Nürburgring, the manufacturers are looking at your lap time every lap, and if you've got a lap that's suddenly 5 or 6 or 7 seconds slower than a co-driver, why is that? Well, I had to back off because there was this AM in the way. They're not interested. They expect flat out lap after lap after lap, whether you're in the car for an hour or 2 or 3 at a time, and you've got to deliver it. It's that important to the manufacturers.
But you also have to see the big picture. You don't want to tire your crew out rebuilding a race car overnight before the Super Pole runs, and then of course the race on Saturday.
This is very true. We've got already a couple of good teams. You know, in the wars, we saw a mechanical problem for Jake Dennis. We've got this issue for Bentley number 7, and here Romain Dumas was at the wheel of mine.
Yeah, I mean, we got it all wrong going to Bruxelles, ran too deep and couldn't get the front to bite, so had to just get out of the throttle and coast, avoid running off the track. So not a particularly good middle sector, I would say, for the 911 Porsche.
Fastest man up the hill at Goodwood a couple of weeks ago, so that's the obvious reason. This is downhill.
Yeah, that wasn't a hybrid VW.
He can't do downhill though, can he?
Special.
Yeah, he can go uphill fine. Pikes Peak, uphill here, Goodwood, it's downhill that's the problem.
Did he have to stop halfway up and change cars?
Ouch. That was cold.
Welcome aboard, Bob.
Well, neither do the Formula E guys that I follow have to change anymore. We've got the Generation 2 car coming up with a full race life battery, and off we go.
Listen, my girlfriend's got a hairdryer that lasts longer, and she doesn't have to change them halfway through drying her hair.
And she could run 75,000 of those hair dryers off of one Formula E battery.
You're listening to a family at war. No, Bob Marsh, John Watson, David Addison. Night practice for the total 24 hours of Spa. Hairdryer recommendations, please, to Mr. J. Watson. So we will have Romain Dumas' time up shortly, and this is, as we've been making the point, the man that was quickest at Goodwood, perhaps more significantly because it's a longer run, quickest at Pikes Peak in the electric Volkswagen on both occasions. Absolutely stunning effort at Pikes Peak. And now back at the wheel of a Porsche, he goes over the timing line. It's a 12th fastest time, but so what? Because we're not thinking about qualifying laps, as I keep making the point. You've got to do these for the regulations. It gives the drivers a chance just to feel what Spa is like in the darkness. Timo Bernhardt there is good to go. Team Patron, there are the Grasser Lamborghinis.
Well, a little bit of setup going on both the Lamborghinis now. One of the issues I know that people are concerned about is that we had really hot weather here early in the afternoon. Cooled off considerably before we went on track at 6 o'clock. But if we were to get that hot weather, if you look at the 62 Aston Martin, in the past, some teams have tried to gain performance by running additional camber, particularly at the rear, and that's sometimes hurt them. So that's another area teams are going to have to think about. They may have to sacrifice that last tenth or 2/10 of a second in overall handling and performance terms just to ensure that they don't give the car too much of a hard time and maybe compromise some of the objectives they have in mind.
Interesting as well here, you're looking at the Bernhardt team Porsche, and it's undergoing, if you like, Bob, a practice pit stop. So they're changing tyres, but done under race simulation, as quick as you can, even though it's only practice.
And they had to re-choreograph it because now they can do the tire change while they're refueling the car and changing the dryer if need be.
So there's a pit stop time for this race of 1:50, which is going to be really what you can do it in anyway, with pit in to pit out.
And of course you've got the Joker as well.
Yeah, but actually what teams are saying is that your Joker pit, you're unlikely to be able to get much under the pit stop time anyway, just because of the length of the pit lane. It was easier at Ricard because it was much shorter. Here, you can, using your Joker is going to be more by luck than judgment in some cases, because, as Bob rightly says, you can do the fuel and tyres at the same time. The length of the pit lane means you'd be very lucky to get under the
150,
anyway.
150, isn't it?
I think so for here, yeah. So we'll see. It's going to be fascinating to see how that pans out. You've also got the technical pit stops which have to be done between the start of the 12th hour and the end of the 15th hour.
And that's another
change
thing.
your pads and discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that intrigues me about the series is the rule book, I think, is pretty carefully thought out and clever in a ways. No racing series succeeds unless it pleases the customer, the paying fan. And I think these rules, with all the drivers getting in the car and qualifying, with the Super Pole session, with the interesting and different pit rules, really makes it that much more interesting strategically for the fan.
And also, you're right about paying customer, because many on this grid are a paying customer as well, those amateur drivers. And one thing, accuse me of being biased or brown nosing or whatever, but Stefan Rattel has always looked at building the back of the grid first. So professional teams might come and go, but the AMs, if the AMs are happy, they're going to stay. So how do you give the AMs track time? Look after them. How do you make the AMs more, and the Pro-Am teams more competitive? Well, you reduce the gap between the big budget Pro teams and the lesser budget Pro-Ams. So you make these pit stops of a given time to stop people spending silly money on refueling rigs. You make a mandatory technical stop to make that balance between the big teams and the little teams. And you look after the back of your grid. You build the back of your grid. Financially, you're doing very nicely.
Right.
The pro teams will come along at the front anyway. So look after the customers at the back. The front will build anyway.
And that's kind of the way sports car racing has historically been. I mean, as you say, the manufacturers come and go, the big name drivers come and go, but it's the well-resourced enthusiast driver who has a day job, but who wants to get out there, has this yen for the sport, and wants to be able to get out there with the other drivers and have a chance. I mean, granted, a pro car has won this race since 2011. Years ago, I was talking with a very well-resourced gentleman driver, you might call him, and he said he was going to leave the series that I was covering him, and I said, why are you going to do that? He said, well, I have a lot of fun, the cars are great, the people are great, but why am I going to stay in a series and spend all this money if I have no chance of winning? Because the manufacturers get their way, and it's not a fair fight. I think the Stefan Rattel organization has done a lot to try to close that gap.
Well, one of the things that the organization has done is introducing the balance of performance, which means that at any point over a weekend, the balance of performance can be adjusted. If one car maybe has been seen to be sandbagging it a little bit, and suddenly they gain performance, that can be an adjustment. Can be done even the night before the race.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you.
Let's just go down to the pit lane for a moment, because Mirko Bortolotti is standing by ready to talk to us. Mirko is always quick behind the wheel of the Lamborghini. Let's catch up with him.
Mirko, now we've just seen them working on your car behind me. What exactly were they doing? You didn't go out straight away at night practice.
Yeah, we're just preparing the car for the night practice after qualifying, and yeah, it took a little bit longer than would be expected. The Parc Fermé stayed closed for a long time, and the night session was quite close, so that's why we took a little bit more time before we eventually got on track, and now we are back out and having our run on the night practice.
Anything specific that you had problems with?
No problem, just a routine check on the car, and just the guys going through the work plan, and nothing strange going on, just a normal procedure.
Now, qualifying probably didn't go to plan the way you wanted it to. What do you think about that?
We're quite happy, to be honest. We are in the top 20 shootout for tomorrow. We qualified in P10. So yeah, for sure we try to find something more in order to be further up tomorrow, if possible. But for today, we did a good job, and I'm happy.
Now, Andrea's in the car right now. When will you be getting in the car?
Andrea's in the car now, then Christian's turn, and then I will be in the car in the end.
Let's see how you go. Good luck.
Be interested to see how Andrea Calderati goes in the 63 Lamborghini fresh back from his summer hauls.
He goes well normally, doesn't he?
Well, he does go well, yeah, absolutely. But a lot of drivers would have taken an opportunity to get away and have a break and a nice quiet family holiday, and then come back, because preparation for this isn't just time behind the wheel. It's getting the right amount of rest, getting the right amount of exercise, making sure that you don't, maybe sometimes it's easy to overtrain. You can maybe get into a training regime where you go too far. So all that has, if you're looking at the top drivers and the kind of conditioning that is required, it becomes quite scientific.
188 McLaren, which is now Chris Goodwin, reported to the stewards for pit speed violation. Oh dear. Just because it's dark doesn't mean you can get away with it. All the data is still there, Bob, isn't it? You're still back to right.
Everybody can go look, or at least the people that matter can go look.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And all the timing systems have these alerts on them, so if you go over the driving time, it pings up for the race director. If you're speeding in the pit lane, if you overtake under the safety car or a full course yellow, you don't really have much option. It's all there on real-time GPS.
It's like the world we live in. There's no secrets anymore. Wherever you go, there's CCTV cameras.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, there's something there that catches what you're doing. I lived in an era and raced in an era when none of that existed. And to some degree, I'm delighted that I had that opportunity at that time, because it was a much more free and free-rolling kind of period in my life, certainly. And it would be, if you took, you've got Riccardo Patrese, for example, and to a lesser degree, Rubens Barrichello. Rubens raced in Formula One up until about 3-4 years ago. So he was fully conversant with what goes on at the high-tech end of motor racing. But all I had was a chronometer speed, a rev counter, a manual gear shift, cable-operated throttle, and no ship-to-shore radio. We just had to get on with it, which is maybe where motor racing, to some degree, has become the victim of its own technology.
Yeah, progress has been a bad thing in some areas, maybe.
In some ways, yes. It's taken away so much from the role of the driver, maybe more so in a single-seater than in a GT, because GT racing, as in the form of maybe sports car racing, is very much more team-related series.
I know a series where they took the telemetry away from the teams to emphasize the drivers. You're probably familiar with it.
Oh, yeah.
It runs your girlfriend's hairdryer.
Well, it takes more than one to tango, Bob.
There's also a series in India, the MRF Challenge for single-seaters, that, okay, they've now brought in their Generation 2 car, but the earlier model had a good old-fashioned H-pattern box. And this was a championship that ran in Asia and India in the winter months. So lots of European single-seater drivers would go there, one or two American single-seater guns would go to keep fresh. But for many of them, it was the first time they'd driven a car with an H-pattern box, because everything else was paddles. And the engineers said, we love this because we can see who the good drivers are, because they can adapt to this funny old-fashioned gearbox instead of it all being done by the paddles behind the wheel.
I don't want to get too far afield here, but years ago, the company I was working for ran a sweepstakes. And we took a collection, 5 sweepstakes winners and a guest, out to a racetrack like Laguna Seca or Sears Point or somewhere. Drove around with famous drivers and race cars, and at the end of the day, on the final day, we got them in a bunch of school cars from the local driving school, manual transmissions. 6 of the 10 people said, I can't go. I don't know how to drive a manual transmission. We couldn't do a simple lead follow around the racetrack.
There you go, there you go. Now, you're on board with the 117 Porsche. We have in the car Timo Bernhardt. We saw him getting ready to go. You're on board with him now, running up towards the Cours Paul Frere and hustling on, using all of the curb on the outside of the road.
Yeah, I mean, this is, well, I shouldn't say a big commitment, but certainly there's not an awful lot left on the table for Timo Bernhardt in a car that is entered under his banner and all the way up into Blanchimont, using a little bit of the track on the outside.
As everybody else.
Well, I mean, this is what I said a moment ago. You'll get pockets on the racetrack where you'll not see anybody ahead of you and nobody behind you, and it'll be maybe another lap or so, and all of a sudden he'll catch up. He makes his way into the pit lane, so it's all a little bit irrelevant at this point. But there is number 2.
Oops.
Oh, who was behind the wheel of number 2 at the minute?
Robin Fritz.
Robin, what have you been doing up at Lake Combe of all places too? Maybe trying to overtake somebody into Lake Combe could have been the reason.
There you go, the Fritz of darkness, back in the right direction. And Robin Fritz, after his moment, 17th fastest at the moment. Even the pit lane is quiet.
Yeah, still Tristan Vautier and the 88 Mercedes still quickest overall. 2 minutes 20.693. That time is in real terms, or I mean, Dries van Thor in the number 1 Audi, his best time in these conditions 2:21.7. So the pace that car driver pairings are producing right now really is more about let's go through, get the driver's cycle out, let's use up our old tyres. Maybe somebody at the end might just throw a fresher set of tyres on to see what the optimum performance might be in nighttime condition. In theory, with the air being more dense, with it being cooler, you should get slightly more engine performance, you should get slightly more downforce. And there are drivers who feel that if they've got the confidence to get all their apexes spot on, all their exits spot on, that actually nighttime driving you can be slightly quicker than you would be in daytime night.
Let's just go down to the pit lane, because as we look at 72 Ferrari, we have David Irigon, who's part of that Ferrari driving squad from SMP Racing. He's in the pit lane with Dakota.
Now, David, we saw you have a good strategy at Paul Ricard, so we know that you can be very strategic. Have you got the strategy down for this race?
Oh yeah, I mean in Paul Ricard we were very fast, the car was very good. Here looks like we are struggling, especially in the warm condition. In the practice this morning was not so easy, it was very difficult to drive our car. In the quali, to be honest, we improved a lot and we were very happy. Just the traffic stopped us a little bit. I think we can stay at the top 10 and let's see for the race. I think to do better than top 10 will be tough tomorrow. Anyway, very happy to be there and nothing, especially to have a good car now, better balance. And we're still working on it on the night practice, so we really focus for the race now.
Are you happy with your own driving performance today?
Yeah, just some traffic, to be honest. Just traffic, I don't put all together, but quite happy, yeah. I know that I have a good potential, just need to find a clear lap.
When are you getting in the car?
Sorry?
When are you getting in the car?
Very soon. I think free lap and then I jump in.
We'll let you get ready. Go on.
Interesting, David, what David Irigon was saying about the setup and the heat and so on and so forth, and I think that's what we were seeing on the Lamborghini Mirko Bortolotti's car, the grass racing. Those cars were having, I think, things done on the suspension, whether that's taking camber out of the wheels or just checking that everything is correct. And if you do happen to get, maybe not so much on Saturday afternoon, which is showing forecasts of maybe rain, but certainly on Sunday you get a real screamer of a day, and that's what people have got to be concerned about, that to run uber quick and get maybe a lap time, you can do things on the suspension geometry, but that might be harmful to the tyre over a longer run, and I think David Irigo was maybe alluding to it without saying it as many words to our pit lane reporter.
We touched on earlier the fact that you have to make this technical pit stop, a 5-minute stop for discs and pads. Now, the way the regulations are written, it's between the 12th hour and the 15th hour, but of course there's more racing done on Sunday than Saturday, so you want to try and push that as late in the race as you can. But at the same time, Bob, you've got to factor in that in this race, which is part of Blancpain, it's part of the Intercontinental GT Challenge as well. You get points at 6 hours, at 12 and at 24. So some teams are going to be chasing points, right, but they're also chasing a race win, and they've got to factor in this technical pit stop. So there's a lot of juggling to do for the guys with the laptops on the prep perch.
And a lot of different agendas out there. Some teams are just doing the Intercontinental GT Challenge, for which this is round 2. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm curious about the tires and what the teams are likely to learn in night practice, if anything at all. Obviously, the drivers have to get their lap times, but I'm wondering, are they changing sets of tires to the ones the drivers were or perhaps were not using during their qualifying runs?
It's a good question.
I mean, I'm assuming what teams will do is they will have a given number of tires which they will not be using probably for the race. They'll take the tire that might be the least preferred of those that are being used, and those will be the tires that they most likely will run, particularly in the Pro or the Pro-Am and the Am teams, just to cycle the drivers. They're not looking for lap time per se. What they're looking for is consistency, and what teams might say to any one of those gentlemen drivers is that we want you to return us a lap time in the night of maybe 2 minutes 25 to 2 minutes 27. Whereas the Pro teams will be looking to do nighttime laps probably in the region of 2 minutes 20 to 21. So there's a different requirement from the different categories. There's 4 different categories competing under the one umbrella in terms of the Blancpain Championship alone.
If you're a Pro-Am car or an Am, for the sake of argument here, do you put your Am driver out on a used set because you won't get the most out of a brand new set, or is that detrimental because they're so, to a point, used that you can't do a good lap time anyway? So do you keep throwing fresh sets at it?
I would tend to use the fresh set with the driver who's going to give me the best value from that fresh set of tires,
so
which will inevitably be your either your Pro driver or your quickest driver in an Am car. If you've got a driver who may be struggling a little bit, then would you want to give him a set, or her maybe in that case, a set of tires that may not ultimately show any particular big it all comes down to fundamental confidence. If a driver's got the confidence, then the benefits being worth it doing.
Let's catch up with Dominic Baumann because he has taken over a seat at our Motorsport for this weekend, replacing Alex Brundle, and Dominic is with Dakota.
Dominic, it's nice to have you back here at Blancpain GT. What is it like to be back here?
Yeah, the team is new for me, but I know good old faces I remember. And it's nice to be back, at least for this race, how it looks like for now. We made it to the Super Pole, which was our first goal, and it's just nice to be back. Seeing a lot of faces I remember, and it's just cool.
Now, before the Spa test, you've actually never driven this Aston Martin before. What is it like to drive in comparison to the HTP Mercedes you drove last year?
Obviously, it's an old car, not the car itself, but the homologation is pretty old. It's an easy car to drive. I got some help from my teammates. They know the car. The team is doing pretty well, helping me to go faster, to know the car. And I think it's a good car for a long distance race, and it's a lot of fun to drive it.
Now, I've just spoken to our Motorsport boss back there, and he said that you are mega quick this weekend. Is that a nice compliment to receive?
Say again?
I've just spoken to the R Motorsport boss. He said you're mega quick this weekend. Is that a nice compliment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope I do as they want, and but I give my best all the time I'm in the car, and try to give the car back in one piece in the race. So, but it sounds good what they say.
We shall be looking out for you in your Aston Martin. Thank you very much.
So Dominic Baumann, who for a good few seasons was a real star in BMW Z4s and then in Mercedes now for the our Motorsport team, and there is Marvin Kirchhofer in the 62 Aston down the pit lane. Ooh, almost a little bit crossed up, but Kirchhofer, who was another gun out of single-seater racing, comes into the pits as they're getting ready to go. Dominic Baumann goes and looks at all the data. And you can come and run a car in a race like this and never actually see the track, can you? Because you've got all of those monitors and all of those computers and all of that data to study.
Yep, it's like an e-sport in some ways.
It is in a sense, isn't it? You can run the car without even being anywhere near it. I know it's a bit of a diversion, but I went to the Mercedes F1 factory 2 or 3 weeks before the British Grand Prix and was shown that their race control centre, where they've got sort of 30 terminals.
I've heard about that.
You know, they are running a car from a different country. They've got real-time video footage coming from the circuit as we go on board with Riccardo Patrese. And it's just astonishing to think that Grand Prix teams, you look at all the personnel of the circuit, and there's another army of them back home. We're not quite at that level in GT racing, but it's pretty impressive.
Oh man, it's military space exploration spec and beyond.
Indeed.
Terabytes of data being analyzed in every way, shape, and form. The strategy simulations are mind-boggling.
Indeed. Now, Riccardo Patrese's mind might be a tad boggled here. Last Grand Prix was back in 1993. He did he not, that Grand Prix Masters series for
yes, he did.
Legends of the sport.
Legends,
sorry, that's the one.
Legends.
Yes. They call them Legends because John didn't race in it, you see.
I did discuss it with them, but they couldn't agree terms.
They couldn't, or you couldn't?
None of us could.
None of you could.
Their loss.
No, to be honest, there's a time to be a single-seater racing driver, and there's a time to move on. I felt I should be in the move-on area.
I understand, John. But it's good. Sorry, Bob.
I'm sorry. It is so great to see Riccardo out here. I mean, regardless of what happens, just to see him back out there again with snow on the roof, as it were, and so on. On the internet, you've probably seen it. There is a video of Riccardo taking his wife out on the track in Jerez, Spain. And I'll just leave it at that. You need to check that out.
Okay, I'll go Google that in a bit. You're on board with Laurens Vanthoor now in number 117. Enjoy.
A little bit of a breeze just in the run up the hill into radio. Go into 6th gear. Engine note climbing as he goes up the Camel straight up. We saw this car doing about 262, 63 kilometers per hour. Now, in these conditions, with the thicker air, the more dense air, maybe you pick up another extra kilometer or 2 kilometers per hour. It's a sort of a freebie you get with running at night time.
Down to Bruxelles, over the brow, hit the brakes, turn right, long looping corner with a bit of correction needed. Where's he off to? There's an apex there, Laurens, that's it, clips it.
Classic, going into the corner on the brakes, turning the steering wheel off throttle, and in a 911 you can get the back end go oops, and that's what it appeared to do.
Out of Speaker's corner, down towards Pouin. Down through the gears, turn in. drag it out the other side. And this, Bob, looking at it, is where Spa becomes so special.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That 100-meter drop from the top at Lacombe to the bottom down around the Paul Frere corner is pretty special. I love elevation changes in racetracks.
This is coming down pretty much the lowest point of the circuit on the exit of campus, then the climb back up through Paul Frere. This used to be called Stabilo because on the old Grand Prix circuit, Stabilo came in from the left when it was a proper corner. But nonetheless, with the development of aerodynamics and tyre development, and it's become an awfully lot easier racetrack than it used to be. And in the good old days, and I'm talking about the good old days back in the 30s when that was, believe me, driving a Mercedes-Benz W154 with just under 600 horsepower and tyres that made concrete and clay look very pliable. It was those were courageous drivers.
No question.
Indeed. So Lawrence Van Thor over the line. That was a 2:21.668, which is good enough for fifth fastest. And Fred Verviche has just done an absolute best in the first sector.
And often overlooked, Fred Verviche.
Yeah, he is.
Within the Audi family.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a driver who has got massive natural speed, but I don't know why we see him sometimes in WRT, sometimes in Santa Loc. Well, that's a great shot. I mean, just that if you want to create a shot of Spa at night time, obviously better with a car going through, but that is just about as good as it gets to me.
There's your elevation change, Bob.
Absolutely. That's another thing about this track that I tell people when they ask, okay, I'm going to my first race in Formula One, World Endurance, this series, whatever, where should I go? And I always say Spa. And the main reason is, A, the track is magic, and B, you can walk to most of it.
That's right.
You can just go see corner after corner after corner. It's a hike, but it's worth it.
Yeah, you lose some weight doing it, but it is worth it. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and there are some great views. You know, you can see the cars working, you can see the cars at speed, you can see the technical bits. You're right, it is a magic place. That's down through campus, past the college, then into the Cours Paul Frere, named after the great Belgian racer and journalist who was instrumental in bringing back the 24 hours after its hiatus, and much missed. Road getting busy. We're down to the last third, pretty much, or heading to the last third of this night practice session. The best time, the 88 Mercedes, Danny Junqueira at the wheel of it, 2 minutes 20.693 from Leo Michitsky's Lamborghini, 221.258. Alexander Sims is third, and in here somewhere is Fred Verviche, the second set of headlights.
Yeah, he's got slightly boxed in coming outside of the bus stop chicane, so he remains fourth quickest, and that was undoubtedly through the traffic at the approach bus stop and going through it.
Yeah, slow lap in the end. It was a 2:23. I mean, it's not bad, but it wasn't what he was after. And there's an example of how the teams are treating the session. I've been making the point you don't have to go for a time, but the teams at that level want to know what their drivers can do, what the car can do, what the tyres can do under simulated race conditions in the dark.
With cooler temperatures.
Right, you know, we've seen practice pit stops, we're now seeing practice lap times, race laps in these conditions. So this is where the pro teams shine. Now, John, one of your star drivers in recent years, the redoubtable Ben Schneider.
Absolutely, a superstar of principally of German DTM, but also of GT racing, and he just has got so much capacity, so much time. I mean, Bernd Schneider is, in his early 50s now, and coming into the pit lane. Just look at the way he just makes that pit lane look so simple to enter it.
Yeah.
And that's just nothing more than experience, but there's so much ability and talent. And Ben Schneider, I mean, he did race in Formula One briefly, I think with Zach Speed, but fundamentally his career was in German national level racing, but then in Group C and principally here we're seeing now in GT3.
Bernd Schneider once gave me a religious experience. He took me on a ride around the Nordschleife.
Right.
The full treatment.
Lucky you.
And oh my God, it was just unbelievable. Actually, I had a colleague then, a former racing driver. The idea was that he would learn the track and he would take a cameraman around and talk for our audience about the circuit. We went once around with Bernd Schneider, and my colleague said, we ought to have Bernd take the cameraman around. This track is unbelievable. And it was. And the key moment was probably when we were right around the Adenauer curve or whatever, and the phone rings in the Mercedes that he was driving us around, a Mercedes-AMG. So Bernd is there working the steering wheel like crazy with one hand.
Which Bob is doing now, by the way.
And he reaches down for the cell phone, and he's talking, and I didn't understand German at the time, but his sound was like, oh, well, I'm a little bit busy right now. I'm taking some journalists around the Nordschleife. I'll be back a little while. Okay, no, that's fine. You can move that appointment. We'll be back by. Click. You gotta be kidding me.
Alexander Sims comes up across start-finish line in the BMW 23-0. So not a lot to write about, but it's the 62 Kirchhofer on the Aston Martin who's been making progress up to 5th quickest, 2:21.614. So that 62 Aston Martin, we were talking with the team in the pit lane a minute ago.
Has Alexander Sims been in that car
Somebody going slowly.
for the duration? Because if it is, he seems to have been in that for a while. Yes, you're right, somebody was slow past the pit ball a moment ago. This is looking back from 98 BMW, which had a bit of a knock, but pretty cool shot. So we're plunging downhill past the endurance pits, the old pits, down towards Eau Rouge.
Yeah, and you're coming down here at 220 kilometers per hour. Watch and see there. No, look at that. Yeah, just see those little titanium skid blocks. Just getting a rub at the very bottom, the compression. Then up the hill, you can't. I mean, at daytime you don't know where you're going. How you know where you're going at night time is doubly difficult. But massive headlight power in these cars, and Alexander Sim just glides the car through the radio, then up all the way to Lake Coombe. Still got powerful headlights behind them. I'd like to know who the two cars are that are following Alexander Sim. I'm sure he would like to know who they are as well.
One of them is Marvin Kirchhofer in 62.
Oh, well, that's going to give him a load of pressure because he's quicker than the 99 BMW.
Well, there's not much to choose, is there? Sims has done a 2:21.3, Kirchhofer a 2:21.6.
Yeah, but at different times. Kirchhofer just did his time.
Yeah.
Sim's time was done much earlier.
There's the BMW then, downhill. 98,
Ricky
Collard. Third generation racer. His dad, of course, BTCC front runner, and his grandfather, legend of hot rod racing, Mick Duffy Collard. But Ricky has had a bit of a torrid time in Blancpain this year. So fingers crossed for a good result this weekend. How is Alexander Sims getting on? Slower lap. In fact, I think he's backed out of it midway round. Bob mentioned a little moment ago somebody was going slowly past the pits, which they were, but it wouldn't surprise me in this session if the race director didn't throw a full course yellow just as a trial, because he's got the opportunity and it's all good for the drivers to get used to how that would work at night. So It may be that we get those for a spurious reason, but you know, just to make sure everybody's used to the procedure.
Yep, rehearse the full course caution.
Absolutely, yeah. And quite a few of the teams at the moment in the pit lane. We've had Lucas Ordóñez improve, he's 21st. Frustratingly, which is where he ended after qualifying as well.
Yes.
Missed out on Super Bowl, didn't he?
Yeah, one out of. So there is the 98 BMW. Is it going? No, it's not. It's continuing along. So that's the sister car to Alexander Sim.
Boy, did this car come out of the box with a bang. Winning on debut here last year.
It's a decent bit of kit, that is for sure. And Rover Racing, perhaps overshadowed early on by the Valkenhorst team, meaning to strike back in this session. Now, we've talked a lot about Riccardo Patrese. I think it's time we heard from a real legend of Formula One.
Riccardo, how nice it is to have you here in Blancpain. What is it like driving here at Spa?
Well, I'm very happy to be here because Spa was one of my favorite circuits. Last time I was here, it was 25 years ago, and I was driving on daytime, of course. So now I'm discovering the car, I'm discovering the track in night time. It's a little bit of a new experience, also because it's a long time that I'm not racing, so, but I'm enjoying.
What about Spa makes it your favorite track?
One of my favorite because it's very challenging, very quick corners, and good memories in the past also.
And what was your motive for coming back here and racing with Honda?
Well, it's because I needed a little bit of adrenaline going through my veins. So I said, if I go there, for sure I get some excitement, no doubt about.
We all love a bit of adrenaline. And what is it like driving the new Honda around Spa? Very different?
I like very much the Honda car, of course. I just met the car only 1 month ago, not much testing, that is a bit of a problem. But it's a comfortable car because it has all the electronic stuff that I'm not so used to it because, you know, in my time we had much less electronic involved. And because of that, there are a lot of helps from the car: traction control, brake, power steering wheel. So I like the car very much. The only problem is that I needed maybe a little bit more time to adapt it.
Don't worry, we have 24 hours to adapt all that electronic stuff.
Yes, for sure.
Good luck for the race.
Time during the race.
Thank you.
And bear in mind, we talked about this in qualifying, but in 1985, Riccardo Patrese won the Spa 1,000 kilometres in Lancia, and he was also fourth in the same race, because in those days, the regulations were a bit freer and they would let you cross-enter into different cars. Right. So teams would take their star driver and put him in the entry list in 2 cars. So if one failed, he had a chance in another. So to be first and fourth in a 1,000k race ain't bad.
I wonder if he brought an extra pair of spectacles.
Now you see, there you go. As you get older, it's the spectacles. When you're a young driver, it's underwear you need to worry about, but as an older guy, it's spectacles. We are looking at the reflection of lights across the Armco. We've got 29 minutes of the session to go. The moon is out, the light is virtually gone, there are headlights everywhere. The place takes on this completely different feel now. Even though the cars are still quick, it just feels like a different pace, doesn't it? There's just something about nighttime racing.
Yeah, it's a lot like Monza in that way to me. You know, the ghosts come out at night, especially.
Yeah.
The sound reverberating off the trees. Of course, racing history is one thing here, but military history is another. Places like Bastogne, the Ardennes Forest, the Battle of the Bulge during the dark days of World War II. There's so much history around here. It's such a fascinating part of the world.
Yes, just up the road from your hotel, you'll find a monument to American soldiers that lost their lives in the war. So it is, you're right, that the heritage of everything is around here. Yeah. It is a special place. If you've never been to the Spa 24 Hours, I would recommend it because it just has a great feel.
I mean, we've mentioned all the wonderful things that are going on. The thing that I think is the most impressive is that we've got so many different, I think we've got 12 or so different manufacturers who are all producing engines that sound like racing engines. Even some of them that are slightly muted. They've all got an individual sound. You can tell, in effect, you know, a Mercedes from a Ferrari, from an Audi,
exactly, yes.
A screaming V10, a turbocharged V8. You know, how many race series have you got where you got that differential of so many different engine configurations? And they all have an individual, and it's the sound. For me, motorsport is, apart from the visual aspect, it's the sound. And if you've got a motor race where there's no sound, I don't get it.
Well, there are championships apparently with cars that barely make it. I mean, Bob, I can't imagine what that must be like.
Now it's 2 against 1. It's nice, really nice.
But seriously, Bob, you're listening to a Ferrari going down through Pouhon at night time. And you know at night time, the thing with sound is very difficult to pinpoint it, because if you haven't got reference points, you can't pinpoint it. So it's a slightly unusual and different experience to that you'd have in daylight hours.
Yeah, we used to have a challenge contest when we weren't working at major races. You go out and you blindfold people and make them guess what car is that just went by.
Was that X certificate?
X what?
And how successful were you? Were you the star pupil?
I batted around 500, you know, which would be great if it were baseball, not so much if you consider yourself a car guy, but you know, such is life.
By the end of 24 hours, you'll have all 60 nailed in this.
Well, this is a smorgasbord of engine sounds, no question about it.
So this is the 51 Ferrari, Matt Griffin at the wheel, the very, very rapid Irishman. And we talked in qualifying about drivers being USB sticks. You plug them in and off they go. Matt's another one, isn't he? I mean, you put him into a Ferrari, bang, he's flat out.
Yeah, he's a contracted driver, I think, with AF Corsa.
Yeah.
Which is in effect a Ferrari, you know, contracted driver. And Matt drives throughout the world. I think he's probably driving nearly every weekend. I don't know when he gets time to enjoy his wine collection, which he keeps telling me is an excellent Bordeaux selection. Verticals and what's happened? It's not daylight, is it already?
If you're near the floodlights in the spectator areas, life becomes rather different.
Now, the thing we haven't focused on, which is the preeminent part of coming to Spa.
Beer.
No, the friteur. You know what friteur is, Bob? It's a mobile restaurant, you might say, where Belgian French fries.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Free mayonnaise.
That, for me, for David, it's beer. For me, it's French fries with mayonnaise or ketchup, or if you want a curry fry, you can have that as well. But it is so much a part of the character of Belgium.
No question.
Frites mayonnaise is for me. It's like going to the States. When I used to go to Watkins Glen, the first thing I wanted to do was go to Burger King or McDonald's, because it made me feel I'd actually arrived, and I really enjoyed that. We didn't have that in Europe at the time.
There used to be, when I first started coming here 20 years ago, there used to be a chain all around the circuit. Now the circuit owns the franchise and it's rather different. It's all a bit more professional. But there used to be these grotty little wooden shacks run by a company called Whoopie Snacks. Whoopie Snacks for your €2.50, €2 for the frite, 50 for your sauce, would serve you this cone of frite. And it was happy days. You've got this wooden fork, which was useless. So you ended up with all this all over your fingers.
Right, like a popsicle stick.
Exactly. And then for another €3, you could have a bottle of Jupiler, which didn't do much, but it washed the frite down. And it is exactly part of the cultural experience. You've got to have frite mayonnaise.
That's right. John has the sounds, you have the beer, I'll take the food.
Between us, we're there.
We got it covered.
Now, Bentley 7 didn't do Q4, technical issue. All seems good now, guys. The man behind the wheel of it is Stephen Kane. It's 13th. This isn't a gun lap because he's down in the first 2 sectors. But even so, the good news is the car's circulating.
Right.
Yes, and the good thing is that they've got the car running in a competitive, I mean, okay, it's down in 13th position. 121.8 is its best lap. Sister cars on 221.7. So roughly a tenth of a second between the two Bentleys. They'll be happy with that.
And they've got a little extra time to fine-tune it now.
Tomorrow's a bit quirky because the teams don't do very much until late afternoon, early evening when they have the warm-up, which you would expect to be on race day, but we have so many support races on race day. The warm-up comes at the end of Friday and then the Super Pole. So they get a lie in tomorrow.
What value for money this ticket is. I think there are 5 support series plus the big event.
Oh yeah, I mean, you go to Le Mans and it's a different event, I know, but there is more racing now than there used to be, but it's still nothing like this. I mean, from the moment we got underway this morning, it's wheel-to-wheel, bang, bang, bang action. And there were cars on track on Tuesday. The bronze test was on Tuesday.
Right.
So yeah, if you come, again, this is why I say come to the Spa 24 Hours, because it is a proper race enthusiast's long weekend.
Did we ever find out the cause of the Bentley 7 not fulfilling or not competing?
No, all I could get out of the team in the press office was a technical issue, but they knew no more than that at the time. That was just before we came back for this session, so we will get to the bottom of it, hopefully. But the good news is the car is now seemingly healthy.
It's running competitively.
Yeah, might have just been electrical if they got to fix that quickly.
Maybe. And if you're going to have a problem, get it out of the way in practice.
Bob, you say electric. I mean, because the cars are so complex, that electricity
governs everything. Yeah,
it does. I mean, literally, they've gone away from being mechanical to being computer effectively controlled in so many departments.
I mean, how many times have you and I seen the car suddenly slow and pick up? We've talked about Control Alt Delete, a reset, and away they go.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, you see that all the time these days.
Yeah. So what have we got left? 22 minutes and 89 Mercedes. If you're wondering why it's got the little green pole on the top, it's for the pit crew to identify which set of headlights belongs to them when it comes into the pit lane. Fabien Barthez, the former Manchester United goalkeeper, part of the French World Cup winning squad in football, or soccer, I should say, shouldn't I, in front of you?
No, that's okay. I'm a football guy now.
Okay.
I'm living in Paris for this summer, and when Les Bleus came through in the World Cup, the place went nuts, and it was great to see.
So you're being educated into this funny European speak.
Absolutely. Yep.
Bravo.
Fabien Barthez, a driver who's, we see him in endurance races, but has made progress. Going from Ferraris, now in the Mercedes and the ACA ASPT.
He's achieved his goals, hasn't he, so to speak?
Sort of, yeah. Well, I don't know if any penalties involved, but he's certainly got a few of those too.
Yeah, he's getting his kicks.
Indeed so. The team is, he has his own team for sport prototype racing, him and Olivier Panis, but here he's part of Jerome Policon's ACA ASP squad. And turning his way now down through the Cour Paul Frere and campus.
There's not an awful lot happening in terms of lap time improvement. I mean, certainly down in 51st place, there's been an improvement. Car 18, so probably what most driver team packages are doing is what we probably discussed earlier in the session with 20 minutes or so remaining. Just give everybody as much track time, in particular the AMs and the Pro-Am cars. Let them get out there. There's no restriction on how much time you are allowed to run in this 1.5 hour session.
Personal best middle sector there from Barthez, which is pretty good. I know we're not chasing times in this, but it's good that they can improve and get quicker.
The thing is, give a driver an opportunity to discover or create a rhythm.
Yeah.
If you're in the car for 1 or 2 laps you don't get the rhythm, give them maybe 10 or whatever number of laps is appropriate, then maybe you can start to get that rhythm and find, you've got 3 different sectors, work in one sector, then a second sector, third sector, then try and put them all together. So up the hill, the Mercedes, and then we're looking at the Lexus, in fact, Stefano Telli, and the Lexus Bob, we saw them, they won in Paul Ricard. It was an unbelievable last lap. Bentley were leading, and then there was a problem, the bonnet detached, and it created a difficulty for Jules Gougnot, and the Lexus was right behind, and Albert Costa managed to sneak past half a lap from the finish. I mean, unbelievable race, and the development and the pace of development that we've seen from the Emil Frey racing team with the Lexus, very, very impressive indeed.
Yes.
Not every racetrack might suit the configuration of the Lexus, but certainly somewhere here like Spa, and again, whether you're inside the top 10 or the top 20, it's really going to be about where you are at the end of 24 hours.
And it makes a great noise.
It's an individual noise, yes. I mean, it's a V8, and that's got its own sound. And that's another part of motorsport we don't see so much of. Actual, photography used to be a big part of it. I mean, amateur photographers would take some of the best motorsport images you'll ever see. And again, at night time, if you know your craft well enough,
right,
you can be so creative. And that sounds like it's ticking over.
Yeah. And it's a fairly smallish V8. It's only about 3.8 liters, I think.
It's around about 4 liters. It's not a big displacement.
No.
But again, I was mentioning the balance of performance, which is a mechanism we're in.
Right.
Everybody has got fundamentally a car that's capable of doing an identical time, be it a Porsche or a Lexus or a Bentley. And obviously teams think that they might be able to loosely call it sandbagging. But if you do that, you will be found out. And I mean, there are mechanisms where you might get a little bit of aero taken away, you might get a slightly different increase or decrease in your engine restrictor, maybe a bit of added weight. And it's so easy for the organization to ensure, first of all, that no one manufacturer dominates the championship. That is something that is paramount within the SRO Blancpain GT Sprint and Endurance Championships. There is no way that we want to see one manufacturer dominating.
Right.
And it's proven, I think, immensely successful.
Bentley news, you may have mentioned 8 has been up an escape road, and I've just tried to have another go at finding out what happened to 7. It wouldn't restart at the beginning of Q4. Why it wouldn't restart, I have been unable to get the information. It had an issue, which is that phrase that tells you nothing.
Right.
That's in modern parlance. We had an issue with?
Even a hunch?
Well, I mean, that's the time when the engineer plugs the computer in and reprograms it. Now, it may have been something simpler than just having to do a reboot.
Well, it's critical here because, of course, they have to stop the car and shut it off when they bring it in for pit activity. And if it's not going to start for some mysterious reason, then you've got a problem.
Chasing an electrical problem, like John's made the point.
Yeah.
You could be there for a long, long time. You think you've cured it, and oh no, you haven't. So just over 15 minutes of night practice still to run.
Well, 2 good points you made a moment ago, John. Number one, the series are getting much better, and I'm thinking about our domestic sports car series in the United States, IMSA, which you mentioned earlier. It's now the WeatherTech Championship. They've been very upfront in expressing to the teams that they're not going to be allowed, to the extent it's possible, to sandbag and gain an advantage in performance. And the other is that the manufacturers know that coming in. So, we're not going to let you run away with this. Your stuff has to be just, as good as everybody else's, perhaps available for a reasonable cost to a customer team. And we'll all play together, and the rising tide raises all boats, hopefully. I know that's not how marketing departments think, but...
No, but I think there are no direct factory teams in this championship.
Right.
They are quasi-factory teams all through the field. But to get away from the kind of scenario that you've seen in other championships, WEC or Formula One, or I can't think of others just off the top of my head, where you for a period of time you'll get one manufacturer dominating to the detriment of the sport. And I think I view motorsport as being, it is a profession, but it is also an entertainment. And I think it's important that those people that want to have domination and use that to market and whatever other reasons they may have, they're forgetting that it is ultimately, without the public's involvement and support, there won't be motor racing to the level that we're going to watch. Look at that, up through Blancpain. Wow, nighttime, there wasn't much left there. Oh, Bamber.
Heading up towards Les Combes. Meantime, down in the pit lane, Lexus driver Christian Klein, winner of course at Paul Ricard. Let's hear his thoughts on the evening so far.
Christian, you qualified 15th. Are you happy so far?
We are quite happy with that. It was a very busy day, a lot of track action with rain and drying out, and then it's super tight, 70 cars on track to get that qualifying lap in. So we're quite happy with P15. That's the target for today, to be in the top 20 shootout for tomorrow.
Super Bowl, what's that going to be like?
I mean, extremely tight, of course, but we did some good laps today. Top 10 would be great for us, but then, you know, it's such a long race. Important was today, we saw that we have the pace and we can fight it.
Now, we've never seen the Lexus actually perform over 24 hours. We saw it perform over 6 hours at Paul Ricard, which it did absolutely fabulously. I'm sure that's a highlight of your year so far. But how, 24 hours?
I mean, the 24-hour race of Spa is the biggest race in the year, in the calendar, probably the biggest GT race out there. So therefore, it's a super important race. We won in Lake Castellet, as you mentioned, the 6-hour race. But this one here is a different story. It's 4 times as long and much tougher.
Looking forward to it?
Yes, for sure.
That didn't seem like a positive answer. Thank you.
I think the fact that Christian Klein has a car that he knows is competitive and can run at the front will make him a lot more chipper about the race, because they've gone through those pains, or most of the pains of development. And as we saw at Paul Ricard, here is a car that can run at the front. And Emil Frey Racing as a team, guys, has got better and better. They know how to deal with pit stops. They know how to get around problems. They're up there with the big boys.
Yeah, John and I were talking about that earlier while you were checking on the Bentley, and that Lexus really has come around. It's a fine car. I'm tickled to see.
Sounds good as well.
Yes,
Sorry
it
to keep
does.
going on about sound, but it does. I mean, it's a proper run-and-go car.
I said the same thing. And but Christian Klein's a guy who has stuck it out. I remember covering him in Formula One with the Jaguar team back when that was a thing.
And he's been a Red Bull back driver, hasn't he? Came through the ranks of the junior single-seater categories. As 175 Mercedes goes 46th fastest with Kenny Harbull at the wheel of it. Out of La Source, now John plunged downhill.
Yeah, here we go again. Now we've seen other cars go flat all the way down. Obviously, this part of the track's flat out. Just when you get to the compression, let's listen.
Whoa! That's not the way the coach drew it on the blackboard.
No, I mean, that's what happens when you get out of it. All of a sudden, maybe the car gets a little bit unstable, and then, oh my goodness, I'm going to get on the inside of radio. You can do that, but it's not something that's recommended.
Wow. That was a Code Brown moment, wasn't it, that? Kenny Harbull flirting with disaster there.
What's happening and how do I fix it in a fraction of a second?
Yeah. And now he's got himself stuck in traffic as well behind the Cup car Porsche, which he can get through on the inside thereof. But it'll be a rather chastened Kenny Harbull, who I think just needs to settle himself down again after that.
Yeah, but when you get a scare, or maybe a momentary little, as you find yourself on the wrong side of the exit of radio, you know, the next time you're going to come down the hill, you're going to be apprehensive. And then you try to build the confidence. But this car, the 175 Mercedes, when you see it in daylight, the paint scheme on it is just absolutely stunning. And I said to David during the broadcast earlier, that rear view of the car going out of sight, it reminded me of the Peter Brock Daytona Cobra. Just paint scheme, the colour, and just look at the back of it, that white. You could almost imagine, look at the dust on the inside of Fagnes. Somebody's been running that curb way too far to the inside, and that's again one of the issues you've got on a road track. Been very dry obviously here for the last goodness knows how many days. So running the curbs or running inside the curb, you're going to kick a load of dirt and dust up onto the racetrack.
Kenny Harbull, who is new to Blancpain, pressing on, getting the mileage in here, getting the seat time. Who's at the wheel of 488 at the moment?
Yeah, he got a penalty.
Yeah.
Or report the stewards going through speeding through the pit lane.
Oh, Pierre Arret. Yeah.
Another guy with a long history.
Well, absolutely. I was about to say he should know better, but maybe the button didn't work properly. can't be his 11th foot, can it? That would never do. Hardball for the pit lane. So after his scare, he's come in to sort out the laundry.
There is a very pretty moon. You'd like to think that's giving a little bit of additional light around the racetrack.
Hope we see it tomorrow night. Excuse me, Saturday night.
Well, Saturday night would probably be more beneficial because it's going to be a long night for many of these teams and for many of the drivers too.
And they're looking down from the top of Eau Rouge, just indicating the lights in the pits, in the grandstands, the trade area, and of course on track. We're into the last 10 minutes of the session. Then in the pit lane, there are still more drivers to talk to. Edo Mortara and Gary Paffett amongst them.
Boys, you two both look very happy. You made it to Super Pole, Gary. That's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it was tough. You know, it was a tough session. Edo did a really good job. I mean, he got a bit of traffic, obviously, quite a lot of traffic on his run, and then the red flag. So he did a great job to recover. And yeah, we're in Super Pole. So yeah, fun day tomorrow.
Edo, how do you think Gary did?
I did really well. I mean, he saved a little bit the situation. I had an eventful session with a lot of traffic, red flags. We couldn't put a lap before the red flag, so we were really stressed at some point. In the end, it worked out perfectly, so we are looking to do the Super Bowl tomorrow, actually.
You guys have such a good driver lineup. Sorry, it's so loud in the pit lane. You think you're going to win this?
No, I mean, you come here, you race against GT specialists. We are not. We are coming from DTM, which is a completely different car, and it's obviously it's a tough challenge for us.
Gary, who's doing Super Pole?
Good question. One of us.
One of you two.
Yeah,
Tell them.
One of us too. We flipped a coin, so yeah.
We shall find out tomorrow. Good luck.
Yeah, the two DTM drivers coming from a race series where touring car, but it's more like a silhouette touring car than a road-based salute car. A bit more downforce, which also is when you come to a formula where the downforce is lower than the formula you're racing in, I always feel it's more difficult to adapt to the lower downforce car and the way the car maybe might move around a bit more on the racetrack than going up to a downforce where you gain more grip and more fundamental security. So, but Gary's been around long enough. He's driven every sort of race car. It's got a wheel on it, he'll race it.
Dirk Werner at the wheel of 911. The third driver, by the way, just to finish the point about the Mercedes, is Renger van der Zande, who was very rapid early on in the day as well.
Ooh,
up the curb again.
Just, I think he was watching forward to them. Mercedes just sneaking past. You know, the concern, yeah, look at the speedo readout on that's an extra on the car. You have to pay for that. That's the chrono package you get with the 911.
Traffic in the way.
Yeah, slipping and sliding all over the place. Can you move up the inside and get clear? Just about did it.
That's the good thing about having a day-glow yellow car. People will see you coming.
Always feel you can get on the throttle a little bit earlier in Bruxelles, but you have to wait until the car's more or less straightened up. One of those corners drops away from you, always going slightly off camber.
Through 11. My understanding is next week, or next month, I should say, when Formula One comes to town, Turn 11 is going to be renamed for Jackie Ickx, the Belgian legend.
Deservedly so, I would say.
I would say so. He had some monumental drives around this place.
Yes. In its original configuration and in its slightly emasculated form, but yes. A real star of sports car racing. And of course, Formula One.
Well, he was. I mean, his record in either single-seater racing event, the standout drive for me with Jackie Ickx, I think, was at Nürburgring in 1967, when there was a combined Grand Prix Formula 2 race, and at one point Jackie was up to, I think, second or third place in the Formula 2 Matra. I mean, made the Formula 1 cars of the day, with the exception of maybe the Lotus 49s, made them look redundant.
And people kind of, maybe it's a generational thing, think of it more as a Porsche 956, 962 driver and rather forget what he achieved 2 decades before.
Well, I mean, people forget also about his Paris-Dakar and all those successes as well. Yeah. I mean,
He was also the infamous clerk of the course for the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, wasn't he?
Well, that's for a rainy day, that story, isn't it?
It was a rainy day, you're not wrong. How is Det Werner doing? Well, still only 20th.
Yeah, but it's interesting, up to 8th place. 49. First of the Pro-Am cars.
Which is Ewan Hankey in the wheel.
That's right, just suddenly Ewan Hankey, who's not really an AM, but that's a very good time out of the top 10, currently 2:21.694. There is Ben Barnicoat in the 58 McLaren.
Just wondering, out of the Ram racing drivers, Darren Burke, Sally Yolok, Felix Rosenqvist, Ewan Hankey.
Felix Rosenqvist, what a star.
Absolutely.
I mean, to be honest.
I was just wondering whether you could make Ewan Hankey the star driver, which would, in terms of leadership, make him a Hankey chief, but maybe not. I'll get my coat, it's been a long night. But you're right, Felix Rosenqvist is a star.
He is.
How's he going to adapt to hearing an engine, I wonder? Might frighten him.
I think he'll be just fine. He mixes it up. Actually, he keeps a very busy schedule.
He does, actually,
Super GT in Japan, and
yeah.
we understand he'll be at an IndyCar next year, which will really be interesting.
He turned down the opportunity this year.
Well, we'll see.
No, he's certainly got a talent, and it looked for a time in Formula 3 as though it wasn't going to go anywhere, and then suddenly all these doors opened.
Well, managed by Stefan Johansson.
Yep.
So obviously there's opportunities through the avenues that he has with Scott Dixon, who he's also manages.
That's right. That's a good point. Well, I hope your information is more updated than mine. I'd love to see him back in that other series.
Personally, I'd like to see him in Formula 1 because I think he's the leading Swedish current race driver.
Yeah.
But that opportunity has yet to be opened up to him. But I certainly felt that Felix was one of those drivers that I hope doesn't miss that boat, but I fear maybe might do.
He's got, he has tremendous maturity, or you know, he did when he said, the comment that always stuck with me was, he said, I needed to enhance my reputation, if that's the right word, by racing more different types of cars. And I'm sure you would agree, John, that you know he got into single-seaters, he drove GT cars, he drove everything he could get his hands on, and did some remarkable things for a young driver, often, you know, testing the waters for the first time. So he is...
Versatility, I think, is his middle name.
But it's a clever thing for the future, isn't it?
Look at the back of the McLaren, sorry, just the right bank, the exhaust is flaming under the power. That might just be, I didn't notice it before, and the left bank doesn't seem to be doing it.
So the fastest car on the session is in the pit lane. Christopher Hassler has just gone up to second. Therefore, the margin is 0.239. The magic second in the darkness is only covering the top 7, so shows the disparity a bit more in the darkness.
Well, it's nice to report that it's been a trouble-free session.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities. No, I know, 2 minutes to go. But you know, 60-odd cars out on racetrack. Christopher Mies and the number 1 Audi, somebody who I'm surprised is only down in the 11th place, but again, referring back to what I've always maintained, that WRT Audi, they go quick when it's important. This is not about being quick right now.
Yeah, it's where you are on Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
Well, it is, first of all, on Superpole, and that's when you want to expect the number 1 Audi to be pretty much at the sharp end of the grid.
But go and find any driver, and they will tell you, if they're fastest at the end of Superpole, yeah, it really matters. If they're not the quickest, nah, it doesn't matter. It's only Superpole, you know, it all starts tomorrow.
Right.
But inside, they're hurting because they missed out. Superpole, always worth watching. The top 20 from today's qualifying, they go out in reverse order. They get 2 laps, count your better one for the top 20 on the grid.
Whatever the lap time Christopher Mies will record at the end of this lap, just watching him go into Eau Rouge, up the hill, through Radio, up, couldn't do it any better. I mean, that is just watching a really outstanding driver doing his job outstandingly well.
Although the sector time actually a tad slower than he had done. So
maybe, but just the visual of the way he places the car and makes the car work.
His best lap is a 2:21.723, 1/1000th of a second slower than Bentley 8 of Andy Soucek. So that, and you were talking earlier, guys, about the parity, the equalisation of the cars. That illustrates the point. 1,000th between a Bentley and an Audi. 2 completely different ways of tackling the GT3 problem.
Right.
So Christopher Mies we're watching, and the flag will be out for him at the end of this lap because we've got 30 seconds of night practice to go. if any team has had an issue and hasn't got 3 drivers through, they have to go chapeau in hand to the stewards now, plead their case. But depending on the experience of the driver, it may or may not be a problem.
Little sector best, personal best for the number 1 Audi. So Christopher Mies pushing still. Last lap, best lap is 2:21.7. So he might make a small improvement. It'll only be maybe that 1,000th of a second, or he would like 2,000ths of a second, because that would elevate him from 11th up to 10th.
Davide Rigon, that we heard from earlier, has just gone 15th in Ferrari number 72 on a 2:21.879, as Christopher Mies then guns it out of the bus stop up towards the timing line. 11th he was, and he'll break the beam and do a time that goes 5th quickest. 2:21.455. Christopher Mies goes 5th at the very end.
I did say keep an eye on this lap. I did say watch him through Eau Rouge. I thought it looked sweet. And okay, the first sector didn't deliver a time, but certainly in the second and third sectors did.
Well, even the third was down.
Yeah,
so
but
it was all down in the middle.
It was good enough to carry that car 6 places forward.
That's another fascination of the lap, isn't it, Bob?
A nice way to finish the session.
Absolutely. You know, because of the nature of the track, you might have a moment in one sector, but a different sector with different corners, different configuration, means you can claw back the time.
And that is a real driver's sector, that sector 2. Downhill, lots of fast corners. Well done.
Yeah, good effort there. 53 Ferrari, the Bertolini, Machiels, Homerson, who have I missed? Marco Ciocci. Ferrari goes over the timing line. Number 9 is being reported for pit lane speeding. 19th, Lamborghini is in. 9 is the Target Racing, DeFalco Costantini, Delhez Debs, Lamborghini. So checkered flag, and it's Mercedes that tops the dark times. The 88 of Daniel Juncadella, along with Raffaele Marciello and Tristan Vautier. 58 McLaren goes through, but that was a rather subdued effort. Ben Barnicoat was at the wheel at the end, 20th fastest. Number 12, Ombra Racing, Lamborghini of Lin Kang, Alex Frasinetti, Roma Monti and Andrea Rizzoli up towards the timing line. And that car will go through 55th. Fairly modest evening, 333. Rinaldi Ferrari 46th. It improved last time, actually, with as it should improve, because it had Daniel Kalvitz behind the wheel, the quick German driver. He comes across the timing line now and does go quicker up to 48th. And number 17, which is the Daniel Serra, Stuart Leonard, Marcel Fassler Audi, will go for the pits, even though it was up in the first sector. A quicker time in the first sector. So Daniel Serra. Oh, and then
what's that stop there for? Strange.
Thought he saw the firemen or the corner workers come running over. I thought there was an emergency, but get out the flashlight or torch, you might say.
I'm curious. Arrived at the pit lane.
Shut her down.
We did have one year's 24-hour race where Nicky Melnhoff arrived upside down at the pit lane. Caught out by traffic. But anyway, not quite as dramatic. A quick rundown of night practice times. They don't affect the grid, remember, so this purely a standalone session to give drivers chance in the darkness. And it is Mercedes, Audi, and then a Lamborghini with the Adrian Amstutz, welcome back, Liam Machitsky, Richard Abra, and Patrick Kujala. Lamborghini from Barwell going third ahead of BMW, 4th, 5th Audi, 6th Aston Martin, 7th Lamborghini, 8th Porsche, 9th for Mercedes, and 10th quickest was Audi, the Land car, rounding out the times. And then if you scroll all the way through, you can have a look at the way the class is formed. The Honda, 31st, still improving as a car within Blancpain with limited mileage around Spa. But Patrese de Paille, Guerrieri and Baguette, and it's those last two that are going to be the quicker drivers in the car, getting it to midfield within that session. Lower down, 1 or 2, perhaps further down the order than you might anticipate. But again, what do you read into that? They're circulating, the drivers are cycling through and gaining experience. And for some, important, Rubens Barrichello down in 40th, but learning about Spa in the dark, even though he's raced here many times in Formula 1, learning about GT3 as well. Matt Griffin doing the lion's share of the quick times in 51 Ferrari. The Speed Lover, still a great name for a team, that. The Cup Porsche 991 shaped 911. That's 60th fastest in Coupe Nationale for the Mono brand, the one-make sports cars that are comparable to a GT3 car, slower, less modified, but comparable. They have their own standalone class this year to allow a few more cars in. And it's Porsche versus Lamborghini. The one car we haven't seen, of course, through pre-qualifying, qualifying, nor night practice, number 6, after it was damaged in the earlier free practice session. So number 6 from Black Falcon will have to go and plead its case to the stewards. Let's look back on the best bits of night practice then. The team's getting ready. They had limited time between the end of qualifying and the start of night practice, but when the lights went green, the headlights streamed out onto the circuit, and this amazing €1 million grid piling out into the darkness, with drivers straight away trying to cycle through their 3 laps and hand the car over clean to the rest of the driving force. Every driver needing to get the mileage in. 911 Porsche was on the money early on in the session, trying to hustle up the order. Ricardo Petresi, who'd had a spin early on in the evening, was watching on from the pit lane. Out on track, there was the traffic to contend with. 911 for Manthey Racing came in. There was a look underneath, but all was well. The car sent back out as number 2, Robin Frintz, had a little off. No damage done to the car. He was able to rejoin and go back out on track, thankfully not getting in anybody's way. It was a remarkably trouble-free session, and that's good news, because tomorrow for the teams, they have the warm-up and they have Superpole. It's going to be a fascinating session tomorrow evening when we get to Superpole. That will be on track at the end of the day at 6:30. For now, from Bob Varsha, John Watson, David Addison, it's good night.